I think a lot of people remember recently, I think it was about a year ago, year and a half ago, you started to see a lot of this issue of squatting that was happening, not really in Florida to the extent it was happening in like California. I mean, the usual suspects you would see. And squatting, there's actually a basis for it in like American history, because it's like when people were settling the West, when people like would go on property, if no one else was using it, then you could potentially develop property rights over a time period. And that was just viewed as more efficient than if you had to track down. There's a lot of reasons for that. Bottom line is that didn't necessarily upend the way people do business normally, but to apply that in like a residential context where you move into some house because somebody's a seasonal resident, you just start living there, and somehow you have rights all of a sudden when you never were able to do. You literally had people just breaking into homes and just taking over homes. And then to get them out was like a huge deal. And then property owners would go back in like New York and all this stuff. They're like, I can't get my property back for 9 months or a year or whatever, and all this other stuff. And it was a cottage industry. People were being told that you can do this, and it was a way to basically get, quote unquote free lodging. And so we said that is not going to fly in the state of Florida. We are not going to let people's private residences, even if it's a vacation home, be commandeered by people who aren't paying to be there, don't have a right to be there. We're not going to let the law create roadblocks for property owners just to be able to exercise their rights. So we signed the strongest anti-squatting legislation in the country last year. And that was really, really good. I know some other states have followed suit. And as good as that was really focusing on residential squatting. And that's probably where you see a good chunk of it for sure. And we in Florida, my thing is people know not to try this stuff here as easily. They know that there's much more risk for them to get held accountable than in some of these other places. I mean, you literally had, I think it was like a year ago, it even got on CNN. There were illegal alien, like theft rings, basically. And what they would do, they would steal in New York, and then they'd take the profits of what they would sell or whatever, and then they'd come to Florida and blow the money down here, like vacationing, and then they go back to New York and do the same thing. And someone says, well, why don't you just stay in Florida and steal there? They said, because they put you in jail in Florida when you do that. So I think people kind of get, like, not the most target-rich environment. There's a huge downside for you if you try to do it. But I think with what we did with the residential squatting, it's been really, really effective. Basically, it just gives tools. I mean, you obviously have if you have a right to be there, you're going to have due process to be able to show that you have a right to be there. But I mean, this stuff does not require like an O.J. Simpson trial, right? I mean, like literally, you're either there or you're not legally, and it should be very easy to establish. And so what you don't want is to create all this cumbersome bureaucracy so that incentivizes people to do this, knowing they don't have a right to do it, but also knowing that they can buy themselves 6 months, 9 months, a year just by all the time this goes. So on the residential, we really made it so that our local law enforcement has the tools they need to be able to evict people out of private property who don't have a right to be there. And certainly in a place like Sarasota, we have seasonal residents. There's people that are gone now and they won't come back until October. Well, what would you think? You show up in October and you see some family just living in your house or something that they had no right to be there. I think you would want to just call the sheriff and say, hey, I've got somebody squatting in my house. Can you take care of it? They take care of it, and then you get to use the property. If we had California laws, you'd basically be SOL for 9 months. Like, you would have no easy recourse there. So I'm really glad that we were able to do that. Now, after that happened, people said, well, you also have issues of squatting on commercial property as well. And so one of the bills I'm signing today, Senate Bill 322, that creates similar expedited procedures for unauthorized individuals occupying commercial spaces. So this provides those property owners with a streamlined process to regain possession of the property that is rightfully theirs. Under current law, the remedies to remove unauthorized applicants or occupants of a commercial property can unfortunately be lengthy and time-consuming, which then incentivizes people to take advantage of the situation. And we're not going to allow that to happen. We're not going to create those perverse incentives. So this offers commercial property owners a more efficient means to reclaim possession of their properties from unauthorized occupants. And there's a lot of things in there that I think are going to be very positive. And I know, even this is really all over the state where some of this stuff needs to be used, unfortunately. So you're going to be able to get that done, and I'm really, really excited to be able to sign that. I'm also signing SB 606, which strengthens the rights of hotel and motel owners when dealing with guests who are uncooperative or not paying their bills. The bill clarifies language in current law that a guest stay at a hotel, motel, vacation, rental, bed and breakfast, or timeshare is considered transient unless a written agreement states it is the guest's sole residence. Now, it does happen sometimes where someone will just have a residence at a hotel or motel. I mean, it's not a lot, but it can happen depending on where they are, what station in life they are. But that's definitely the exception, not the rule. And unless that's written down, we're assuming that this is for transient purposes. And I think what we've seen is hotel guests just not pay and squat in the hotel. This forces the owner of the hotel to go through basically a traditional eviction process, like if you stop paying your rent in some apartment or didn't fulfill the obligations of your lease. Staying at a hotel, you're there, you're either paying or you're not. And if you're not, it shouldn't devolve into some major landlord-tenant dispute. The person should just be escorted off the property and leave. So I think this is going to be something that's going to be really good for our economy. Property rights are really important. If you don't have private property rights, you cannot have a free society. Our founding fathers believe that. You have to have things that are outside the control and direction of the government. That's part of the reason why we're so interested in taking on property taxes, because I think if you own your home, at some point for them to tax you for decades on property that you've already purchased and own outright, that undercuts the idea of having private property rights. And so we're fighting that fight, and we're going to continue doing a lot on that in the coming days, weeks, and months. But as a whole, you have to have rule of law, and you have to have enforcement for private property rights. And when that happens, you have a chance to have a free society flourish. When it doesn't happen, it's like throwing sand in the gear of the economy. It's much harder to have strong growth. It's much harder to produce opportunities. And I think some of these states that have let this squatting get out of hand, they're going to come to regret that they did that in the future, because I do think people look at this, and if you're going to be investing in property, you want to know that you're going to actually be able to control that property. And for Pete's sake, you shouldn't have people just show up and start squatting on that property and then all of a sudden be able to weaponize the law against you when you didn't do anything wrong. So I appreciate the folks that were involved in this legislation. We will make sure that that our folks have the tools they need to be able to uphold the very, very significance of private property rights. Okay, we're going to have a lot of great speakers here before I sign the bill. So first, we're going to start.
Folks, let me tell you something. Governor Ron DeSantis just did what every red-blooded American has been waiting for. He signed the toughest anti-squatting laws in the country. And you know what? It's about damn time. People work their whole lives to buy a home, open a business, or invest in property. And some lowlife thinks they can just waltz and set up camp and claim it as their own? Not in Florida. Not on DeSantis' watch.
So we're going to sign, so whoever wants to come up, you can come up and we'll make it official. Today is the 2nd. June. 2021. Okay, I got one more. All right. I've got one peanut gallery. Oh, what a catch. There we go. All right, good job, guys. Thanks so much. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Oh, good, Fiona.
Senate Bills 322 and 606 are a 1-2 punch to the gut of squatters and freeloaders. Now, commercial property owners and hotel managers can kick out the fakes, the thieves, and the criminals without waiting a year in court. Sheriffs are finally getting the authority they need to act fast. No more, he said. She said, over forged leases. If you don't belong there, you're out. This isn't just about real estate. It's about freedom. If we can't defend private property, we don't have a free country. This is what leadership looks like. This is America first in action. While blue states let criminals squat and steal, Florida stands tall for law and order. And guess what? The rest of the country better take notes. Like, share, and subscribe if you back real leadership and believe in defending the American dream. God bless Florida. God bless DeSantis. And God bless the United States of America.